Après-midi et
Hello, good afternoon, and happy Monday to everyone. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 54 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry and Technology, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, December 12, 2022. The committee is meeting to study a contract awarded to Sinclair Technologies. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, pursuant to the House Order of Thursday, June 23, 2022. And we have the pleasure for this first hour of welcoming the Honourable Minister Mendicino, Minister of Public Safety. Thank you for joining us. And then from 3:30, or rather, for the first hour, we will also be welcoming Mr. Brian Larkin, Deputy Commissioner, Specialized Policing Services, and Samantha Hazen, Chief Financial Officer of the RCMP. Thank you to the three of you for being here. And without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Minister for 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to be here. And I hope that everyone here spent some quality time with their close friends and loved ones.
Able to come before you today to say a few words and to answer your questions about the nature of the study regarding certain questions involving equipment that was procured by the RCMP vis-a-vis Sinclair Technologies. And at the very outset, I would like to state a few things up front. First, national security and protecting Canadians is my top priority. Our eyes are wide open when it comes to foreign threats, which is why we have rigorous screening procedures in place when we procure equipment and services to support our public safety agencies. Second, the RCMP has conducted a review of the procurement, installation, and maintenance of equipment in this matter and has concluded that at all times they have followed the applicable policies and protocols. Third, the RCMP further assesses that there were no breaches of security as a result of the equipment in question and that the risks at the time of procurement were and remain low. Quatrièmement, la GRC a suspendu l'utilisation.
Fourth, the RCMP suspended the use of the standing offer and all other contracting and transactions with Sinclair Technologies and Norsat International until further notice.
All of the agencies within my portfolio to apply national security screening protocols to all procurement contracts with the strictest of diligence so as to ensure the ongoing integrity and protection of all public safety-related critical infrastructure. I will now highlight a few key facts to inform your study. The current standing offer completed by Public Services and Procurement Canada, or PSPC, as I will refer to, for radio frequency filtering equipment was issued to Sinclair Technologies Incorporated on October 6, 2021, for a period of 3 years until March 31st, 2024. There are two one-year option periods to extend the use of the standing offer until March 31, 2026. The total value of the standing offer is $549,637. To date, the RCMP has issued only 3 call-ups against this standing offer, totaling $55,073. Further, a separate standing offer for antennas was completed by PSPC and used by the RCMP between December 2013 and December 19, 2018. Under that standing offer, there were 11 call-ups, and they were issued payments totaling $188,982 for antennas, radio shelters, and radio frequency filtration equipment to Sinclair Technologies. In addition to the above standing offers, there were also 11 contracts for various antennas, radio shelters, and radio frequency filtration equipment totaling $234,606. Thus, for the RCMP, the total call-ups and contracts to Norsat Technologies operating as Sinclair Incorporated are 25, valued at $478,661. In addition to these contracts, there were 144 additional low dollar value payments between the RCMP and Sinclair, totaling $461,184 for radio communications equipment, repair parts, and other related products. Les filtres de radiofréquence.
Radio frequency filters allow radio users, including RCMP officers, to communicate more clearly by preventing interference and background noise. The equipment procured by the RCMP under the standing offer is basically unpowered assemblies of tin cans, metal rods, and cables that filter out unwanted signals and interference to help optimize radio performance.
Characteristics, I want to be clear that the equipment in question does not have the technical capability to access RCMP radio communications. Moreover, RCMP radio communications are protected with end-to-end encryption using the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity's encryption standard. While the radio frequency filtration equipment procured from Sinclair Technologies poses no security concerns given its specific function, the use of the current standing offer was suspended on December the 9th, 2022, and a stop work order for undelivered goods was issued as well on the same date. Further reviews are being conducted by the RCMP's independent audit unit. Again, Mr. Chair, there is no reason to believe Canada's national security was under threat at any time during this process. Regardless, there is no shortage of real threats. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous
That is why we are continually striving to ensure the integrity of our democracy and the protection of national security. We are making investments to provide all the tools that law enforcement and public safety officials need to protect Canadians and our institutions, including the critical infrastructure that supports the RCMP. These efforts are ongoing and part of our broader goals to protect national security.
Combating foreign interference is a complex challenge, particularly in today's geopolitical environment. And that is why we are attacking it from all angles, continually reevaluating our approach, making new investments in public safety tools, and reinforcing our already rigorous protocols to safeguard our national security. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now start the conversation with MP Perkins for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. Minister, under the Investment Canada Act, you and the Minister of Industry are responsible when an acquisition is proposed by a company to examine whether or not it poses a national security risk, and if you believe it does, order a full national security review. Is that correct?
In fact, it is accurate. Both myself and the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development do work together in tandem under the authorities granted under the Investment Canada's Act to screen investments where foreign dollars and corporate entities are at play, to ensure that there are no national security risks which may compromise our interests. So we do work together. It is a two-turnkey system.
Great, thank you. So, and you are aware that the China People's National Congress passed the National Intelligence Law in 2017 to compel all Chinese nationals at home and abroad to collaborate with agents of the Chinese state on request to further Chinese state interests. Specifically, Article 7 says that all organizations and citizens shall support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence agencies in accordance with the law and should protect national intelligence. And then Article 10 goes on to say, as necessary for the work, the national intelligence work institutions are to use the necessary means, tactics, and channels to carry out intelligence both domestically and abroad. You're aware of that, right?
Mr. Perkins, I want to thank you for giving us an overview of some of the highlights around that law. And yes, indeed, I am aware that such a law was passed by the People's Republic of China, and that is precisely why we have put in rigorous screening protocols to guard against those types of investments and procurement here.
Do you believe that state-owned enterprises from authoritarian governments like China can pose a national security threat to Canada?
I think we need to be ever vigilant when it comes to the risks and the threat vectors and the potential foreign interference that may be posed by PRC or indeed other hostile actors, which is why we continue to be eyes wide open, which is why we make investments, which is why we introduce policies and protocols around the procurement of technologies, equipment, and services which come from abroad. And that is precisely what the RCMP did in this case.
And would that include Chinese scientists doing research in Canadian universities, as they have been for the last decade, military scientists doing research in Canadian universities on sensitive areas like AI, where they get access and help develop that and take that home to their state government in China? Is that a threat to national security?
I think you raise a very important point, Mr. Perkins, and that is why, among other things, we introduced guidelines around research partnerships that involve foreign individuals and foreign entities in the research and academic sector. Those are guidelines which are applied rigorously, and we are deploying those strategies along with other measures to protect not only the academic and research sector in Canada, which is a driver of innovation and growth and prosperity and new ideas, but equally other tools as well to guard against the risks which are posed by potential hostile actors, so that we can be sure that we are growing in a prosperous way, but protecting all of our institutions at the same time.
But it appears that you're allowing it to happen, since there are hundreds and hundreds of research papers published in the last couple of years by the Communist Party's Military Commission.
Sure.
Just a moment, Mr. Perkins. We have a
I hate
point
to
of
do
order.
this to Mr. Perkins, but I'm just I just took a look on the motion itself. Reads that the committee, pursuant to standing order, undertake a study concerning the contract awarded to Sinclair Technology and so on and so forth. And it looks to me as the focus of the study is on the contract that was reported problematic in the media. So I just wonder what the relevancy of those questions to the minister to the study today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
The relevance
Dung.
is
Mr.
a pattern that I'm trying to establish here of,
Mr. Perkins,
of allowing this to happen.
I hear your point of order, and I'll ask Mr. Perkins to be reminded of the text of the motion and pursue his 6 minutes, the time he has left.
I'll come back to that, and perhaps you might want to answer the question anyway about the threat that hundreds of projects now going on with the government of China military researchers in our university. But NORSAT, when they were acquired by Hytera in 2017, the Minister of Industry, then on behalf of the Government of Canada, obviously in the Cabinet, as the Act requires, sent a letter to NORSAT and Hytera saying they didn't believe buying this telecommunications company posed a national security threat, so they didn't do a study of whether or not this company, of which the RCMP and the Canadian Border Services have hired to supply them with equipment, wasn't done. I know that you were not minister then, but you were part of the cabinet that chose not to do a security review of a state-owned Chinese enterprise buying a critical telecommunications business. Could you explain to this committee why?
I'm sorry, what year did you say that was? I'm just on a
2017.
Yeah, no, I was not yet in cabinet, but that is quite irrelevant to the point. It is more important for you to understand, and for the members of this committee to understand, that in every procurement, for every piece of equipment and service and technology, that there are rigorous screening protocols put in place to guard against potential foreign interference. And I want to assure you that in this case, the RCMP followed the due process that was required in the acquisition, or I beg your pardon, in the eventual contracting of certain equipment that involves radio technology, antenna technology, and filters prior to carrying out those call-ups as I described in my opening
Minister,
remarks.
But do you not find it troubling that two of our most important security agencies for this country in protecting Canadians, the RCMP and the Canadian Border Services Agency, which you are both responsible for, have chosen to buy technology and hardware from a company that is owned ultimately by the Chinese government? You've now said you're going to put out a directive, but does that mean that directive says that in the future you won't be dealing with Sinclair, Hytera, or NORSAT, or will you be dealing with them in the future?
Well, I have two answers in response to your question. In the first case, the RCMP assiduously applied the applicable policies and protocols in the case of the procurement involving radio technology, filtration, and the like from Sinclair. And that is an assurance that I provide to you and to all members of this committee. Second, that going forward, I have instructed my portfolio to apply with the strictest of standards all protocols as it relates to national security so that we can be sure as we purchase equipment, technology, and services that it is done in a way to preserve and protect the integrity of our public safety-related critical infrastructure.
And its subsidiaries will be banned in the future, is what you're saying.
We will continue to apply those protocols with the strictest of standard of rigor.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Perkins will now turn to MP Dung for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, first of all, I want to welcome the Minister for coming to this committee, and also would like to welcome Deputy Commissioner Latkins and CFO, also for RCMP, Ms. Hazen, for joining us today. Since this is the Standing Committee of Industry and Technology, I want to ask my first question to you, Minister. Can you describe to the committee what type of product or technology or service is involved in this contract that we're discussing? I know you briefly touch up on it in your French part of your opening remarks. Can you give a bit more detail on what type of product was purchased for RCMP?
Thank you very much for the question, and I'm happy to again highlight in English for you that the type of technology and equipment that was acquired and procured under the standing offer over the last number of years is in relationship to our radio systems. The purpose of the technology is actually to help to reduce interference. The technology and the equipment itself is made up of tin and metal rods and cable, and I will defer to my colleagues from the RCMP to explain how it is that those materials are able to reduce interference. But I also want to take a moment to again underscore for you and for all members of this committee, because I know that the question has been posed, that there was no way for this particular equipment to in any way interfere or to make its way into the radio communications between RCMP members and various dispatch units. That is also protected by the standard, which is the two-way encryption standard, which is set by the Communications Security Establishment. And so that is one of the reasons why the RCMP has assessed, and we are confident that there was no breach of security in this process.
So over to Deputy Commissioner. Does it, and I'll ask a bit more detail. Does it have a computer chip? Does it have a wire? Is it electronically connected some way, somehow? Please explain to us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the equipment that is procured by Sinclair Technologies, designed and manufactured and purchased from Sinclair Technologies located in Aurora, Ontario. The equipment is, as described, essentially made of a tin can that does have a series of rods and some coaxial cables, and it is designed to optimize our telecommunications and our encrypted radio system, our push two-way talk system. And so it essentially maximizes the frontline members who are using the radio system. So it filters out other frequencies so that the main frequency of the RCMP channel is not interfered with. So there's no actual impact on our operations. It is installed by RCMP radio technicians. It's installed on our towers and/or towers across our nation, coast to coast to coast. And again, it's really a device, a piece of equipment that has no access to any RCMP RCMP system. It's essentially a device that actually filters out other systems. It's commonly used in communication and broadcast equipment, and no different than the towers that we use. And again, there's no computer encryption within it. There's no systems within it. There's no manipulation within it. We actually control that piece of equipment.
Did the contract awarded to Sinclair Technology give them any access to sensitive technology or information that could threaten Canada's national security?
So no access to any technology or any of our systems. Occasionally, from time to time, there may have been a requirement for an employee from Sinclair to attend to assist with installation or some process. Anybody that would access any of our sites or locations would go through our departmental security branch, all the security clearance which are required. But generally speaking, these pieces of devices are procured and installed by RCMP technicians. They're evergreen. There is a cycle. They have a life cycle. And we would be responsible for the replacement on our radio towers across our nation.
Thank you. Back to the minister. Does the government have any kind of security assessment screening for company apply to get these type of contracts? And if so, what do these security screening entails?
We do, in fact, and this is where my officials and the agencies within my portfolio work very closely with PSPC to apply a rigorous standard of security screening. And that is something that I have taken as an opportunity to reiterate not only to the RCMP, but to all of the agencies within my portfolio to assure that we are raising the bar when it comes to potential threats to foreign interference, to make sure that we are holding ourselves to the highest standards when it comes to procurement, especially as it relates to critical infrastructure that is there to support public safety agencies, be it the RCMP, be it other agencies within my portfolio. And by doing so, by maintaining the confidence of Canadians that our institutions, which are there to protect our public safety and our national security, are free from any foreign interference.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Monsieur Dong, Monsieur Lemay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minter, Mr. Dong, Mr. Lemire. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister Menachino. Thank you for your effort in speaking French. It's much appreciated. So just to try to better understand, so when it comes to the technology, Sinclair will encrypt the data that is transmitted through this equipment, but what would stop Sinclair from capturing that code and then transmitting that information? Thank you for your support in speaking French. I've been working hard on that. Now, to answer your question, as I already explained, the technology that was purchased in this case does not allow any kind of interference in our infrastructure. First of all, because of the limits of that technology, and secondly, for all telecommunication systems at the RCMP, there's a standard that is extremely high and that is established by the Communication Security Establishment. And so I am confident after the RCMP review that was done very carefully, because it is something, it's crucial to protect our institutions. I'm confident that there's no issue with this contract. Yes, but are you 100% sure that no conversations were recorded? Because whoever is encrypting the data could presumably translate that and then transmit the information. Isn't that so? In the context of this contract, no, I don't have any concerns, thanks to the review that was conducted and managed by the RCMP, but perhaps my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Larkin, could add something to that. Thank Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'll speak in English. It's a little complex.
System does not actually transmit communications. It's designed to actually filter out any interference. And so when frequencies are crossing over each other, it's designed to optimize the frequency that the front line or the operations of the RCMP is using. So what I can tell you, though, as a result of the information that came to light, there's two reviews happening, a due diligence review, which is being done by our independent internal audit unit, and a technical review. And so we actually have taken a Sinclair radio filtration device, a piece of equipment off a radio tower in Ontario. Our team has deconstructed it to look at any opportunities, whether it was compromised, whether it was any sort of devices, and I can report back and say absolutely not, that the device was the equipment that would be designed to use from a filtration system. We're also doing that across other random spot audits across the country. The next one will be in British Columbia, and we can come back to the committee with that information in writing at a later time as we progress across the nation. So that was a technical review, but it is simply from at the easiest terms to explain, there's no communication that actually goes through the radio filtration system. It's actually designed to push out other frequencies, and the system that we use for radio communication is two-way, push-to-talk, totally encrypted, totally managed by our RCMP radio systems, as well as meets the standards of the Canadian Cybersecurity Establishment. And so we're confident in the technology that we are doing to ensure national security for our organization.
Merci, Monsieur Mendicino.
Thank you, Minister Mendicino. A few weeks ago, the Federal Court of Australia ruled in favor of Motorola after similar decisions in the U.S. and in Germany. And so Hytera is present in over 80 countries in the world, and Motorola has been trying to get the decision applied on in other countries for digital mobile radio technologies. Have you had any discussions with Motorola before or after the suspension of the contract with Hytera? I am not familiar with the Australian court ruling. But I can tell you that from our side and from the federal government perspective, we're always going to apply all the protocols and measures that are necessary to protect our institutions that could affect public safety. That's what I explained in my introductory remarks. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we don't have much time. Have you had any discussions with Motorola? Well, we're in contact with the industry, but each case is assessed on its own merits. That's our approach. With the measures and the protocols that exist to protect our institutions, I believe that we have a good approach. So the answer is no. We stay in contact with the industry that approaches us for contracts. So there's a process for staying in contact with the industry. Thank you. Mr. McGregor.
Very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, good to see you again. Usually at public safety, but we'll do it here at the industry committee. You mentioned that this contract is currently suspended. Is there a chance it will be reinstated if your review finds nothing wrong? Like, what avenue is open to the company now?
Well, the first thing I want to clarify is that not only has the RCMP suspended, but there is a suspension of all contracts across my portfolio. And with regards to the future, I will say that the RCMP and all of the agencies in my portfolio are continuing to evaluate very, very carefully any threats, any risks that may apply. So when we have more to say about that, Mr. McGregor, we will be sure to let you and others know.
Appreciate that. Reviews are important. I think governments sometimes use reviews to place a necessary pause on things. Sometimes they can take a while, though, and there are necessary public questions about government action or inaction, given how much time they may take. We look at the time that was required to make a decision on Huawei. There was quite a long review on that before your government finally made a decision. We've had other ones. I guess what I want to know, Minister, is you have ordered all departments under the realm of public safety to commit to a review of their procurement practices. I'm quoting you correctly there?
Yes, but I just would like to clarify another premise in your question, if I can.
Well, but I just want to have a chance to ask my question. So,
sure.
Am I quoting you right? You've asked for that review of procurement across the board.
I have, and okay. I've asked all of the agencies within my portfolio to apply the strictest of standards and rigor when it comes to national security screening.
And I'm happy
around
to hear
procurement.
That. I guess what I want to know is, before you asked for this review, what was the standard? I guess what we want to know is, would this review have come with this particular company in question? Would this have been caught if there had not been a public outcry?
Well, first, I want to assure you and the public that the standards are already extremely high and robust. And the proof of that is not only in the results of this case, and I have confidence in the assessment that has been done by the RCMP that there were no risks posed in the circumstances of this contract and the procurement and the services that were obtained as a result. But beyond that, we are deploying an array of tools every day, 24/7. And as you know, Mr. McGregor, from your work on the public safety file, that we have to be ever vigilant about this, that we are constantly reassessing, reevaluating whether or not there are new threat vectors which may be posed by hostile actors, which is why in this particular matter and in all matters, we will apply a very strict standard, and that is precisely the instructions that I have issued to the agencies within this portfolio.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Larkin, good to see you again, and thank you for confirming that the RCMP did in fact find no security breaches. I believe the contract required building the system but also maintaining it, and I want to focus on the maintaining part of it. I understand that this equipment does not have access to your end-to-end encryption and that the communication technology is secure. I guess what kind of protocol does the RCMP have in place when an employee of this company, which is now under investigation, when they're on site maintaining this equipment, they are going to be in the vicinity of some pretty sensitive technology. What kind of standards are in place to ensure that that security is maintained in the future during the maintenance part of the equipment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, all employees are mandatory screened by our departmental security branch, and all employees would be escorted. And so they would actually have no independence or no opportunities. It would be with our radio service technicians that would be escorting them to do the work, to review the work. There may be some troubleshooting, et cetera. But again, that's something that we consistently monitor, that there's no independent access to any of our radio sites, in fact, any of our facilities, and the stringency of our background security checks.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off, but I just want to get one last policy-related question to the Minister. So, Minister, your government has introduced Bill C-26, which is quite a wide-reaching bill in the powers it's going to give to the executive branch. We know the United States has also taken similar steps. C-26 does require designated operators to establish and implement security programs and mitigate the supply chain and third-party risks. So that's the legislative fix. But in absence of that bill, because it, of course, has not yet passed Parliament, where are the gaps that we need to be focusing on, or is this your government's answer to closing those gaps?
I think in addition to Bill C-26, and you've given some highlights to it, where we will work with industry and with regulators to protect our critical infrastructure in a number of priority areas, including in telecommunications. As you may recall, Part 1 of Bill C-26 seeks to add very expressly the objective of ensuring the security of our telecommunications sector. But beyond that, You have the protocols and the policies which govern procurement, which we do in partnership with PSPC. You have also the authorities granted to the service under the CSIS Act, which includes threat reduction measures, which this government introduced in 2019, but with the corresponding transparency and accountability as granted by both INSIRA and NSICOP. And there are reviews that are coming up for that legislation. And Mr. McGregor, I hope that is something that you and I will be able to work with, along with other parliamentarians. And there are additional investments which we are making right across the national security and public safety apparatus so that Canadians can be assured that we will be vigilant 24/7 to protect our critical infrastructure, to protect our institutions so that we can keep them safe and preserve the Canadian interest both here and abroad.
Beaucoup. C'est tout le temps que vous aviez. On passera maintenant à la parole.
Thank you. That's all the time you had. Now, Mr. Weiss, for 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Hearing today. Minister, your government has stated, and you stated again today, that these contracts were not subject to a national security review. The RCMP also stated publicly that the Hytera Sinclair system in question was, and I quote, not a security risk, and you reiterated that point today. But then we heard today that you instructed the RCMP to conduct a review of the procurement practice, which led to the contract being awarded. Yet the contract was still immediately suspended after this came to light in the media in December. Why was the contract suspended if there was no risk to national security and all of the protocols, from what we've heard today, were followed?
Let me pick up on the last point that you made, and that is I wish to underscore that the protocols and the procedures were followed by the RCMP in this case, and that should be a source of assurance as to the conclusions of the RCMP's review, that there were no risks with regards to the equipment and the services that were procured in this matter. That having been said, and as I said to Mr. McGregor earlier, it is important that we remain vigilant, and vigilance demands that we constantly reassess the situation to be sure that we protect our critical infrastructure from potential foreign interference.
Thank you. I'm going to ask another question. Do you think the RCMP made, or you and the Prime Minister, both you, Mr. Minister, and the Prime Minister challenged the independent decision making of the public service in December in respect to the awarding of this contract with the RCMP? Do you think the public service got it wrong when they gave Sinclair Technologies this contract?
I believe the RCMP followed the protocols and the procedures that are in place. But I also want to assure you that in light of this study, and by the way, the government embraces the work of this committee. We think it's important to shine a light with transparency on how we procure. That following that, I did issue directions to my agencies to make sure that we are applying the strictest of standards and rigor around these screening protocols. And the work of continually reassessing potential threats is ongoing. It does not end. And we will continue to spare no effort to protect our institutions.
Through you, Mr. Chair, has the RCMP, with your discussions with them, Minister, acknowledged whether they were informed or aware of the U.S. State Department of Justice 21 charges for conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets against the company in question today prior to the contract being awarded?
I will pass to Deputy Commissioner Larkin, but it is certainly a well-reported fact. But I will pass to Deputy Commissioner to indicate exactly when the RCMP became aware of it.
Very briefly, Mr. Larkin, were you aware of the charges? Yes or no?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Whether a supplier is ineligible to do business with the Government of Canada is determined by PSPC through their integrity regime. In this case, PSPC determined that there were no ethical concerns with awarding Sinclair Technology the standing offer.
So you were aware of the 21 charges against said company when the contract was awarded? Yes.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. That's not what I said in my response. We did.
Can you answer my question then?
I personally was not aware.
Okay. With my remaining time, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the candor today from all the witnesses in providing these responses, and I think all of our instinct here today is to get to the bottom of how contracts are awarded to ensure the integrity of our system. So I'm going to move a motion that all papers related to the contract awarded to Sinclair Technologies from the RCMP and the Minister of Public Safety be provided to the members of the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology for further review and scrutiny. I'll provide that via email right away. The purpose of asking for papers related to the discussion here today and what the minister referred to was his instructions to the RCMP is that the Investment Canada Act is up for review in Parliament, and I think it's integral upon this committee and other committees to get to the bottom about how contracts are awarded and to ensure national security is upheld at the highest standard at all times.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Viss. I see Mr. Dung.
Hi, Chair. I respect Mr. Viss' rights to move motions. Can we suspend the meeting until we see the motions in writing so we can talk amongst ourselves and just...
Yeah, Mr. Viss, do you have the motion in writing that you could send? You just sent it? Okay, so the clerk will distribute it. Then I suggest we pause for maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes, just so you can read it and make your mind up. So we'll pause for a brief moment. chers collègues,
So we're going to continue. Apologies for the brief interruption. We're going to discuss the motion that has been put forward by Mr. Viss. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. It's relatively short. Are there any discussions before we move to a vote? It's so unusual that nobody wants to discuss something. 2023 it's off to a good start.
Excuse me, could you repeat the question, please?
yeah, we're voting on the motion, Mr. Fillmore.
No.
No.
Mr. Dong.
Yes.
Mr. Erskine Smith.
No.
Ms. Lapointe.
No.
Mr. Gahir.
No.
Mr. Viz.
Yes.
Monsieur Généreux.
Oui.
Mr. Perkins.
Oui.
Mr. Williams.
En faveur.
Monsieur Lemire. Mr. McGregor. We have 7 yeas, 4 nays.
Merci. Donc, la motion est...
Thank you. The motion is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Viss. And I think you had completed your time. You had 5 seconds left. And so that leads us to the next person. I think, Mr. Minister, you have to leave at 4:30. And so we have time for another 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, thank you to the Minister for making time for this committee. Minister, so Sinclair Technologies was granted a contract for $550,000 roughly for radio frequency filtering system. Does a radio frequency filtration system pose any security concerns, and does it allow access to radio communications at all?
It did not pose any security concerns at the time of procurement, and following the review that was conducted by the RCMP, that continues to be the case. I would also just clarify, you stated a numerical amount around the contract. It is important for members of the committee to understand the distinction between a contract and a standing offer against which the total allowable of monies is drawn down. And in the particular current standing offer, there were three instances where there was a drawdown of an amount approximately $55,000 or thereabouts. So just to make sure it's clear that the full contract amount was not paid out, but rather in those 3 installations under the current standing offer, the amounts were limited to $55,000 or thereabouts.
Great, thank you. Can you share with the committee if Canada's national security was under threat at any time during the process of this contract?
I'm confident on the basis of the review that was conducted by the RCMP that the answer to the question in this matter is no. But that having been said, I do embrace the study. I embrace the questions that have been posed by members of this committee because it is important that we are exhausting every possible effort with due diligence and rigorous screening when it comes to the procurement of equipment, of technology, of services which are acquired in support of our critical infrastructure that are there to make sure that we can keep Canadians safe. It is, I would add, a very complex geopolitical environment. There are hostile actors who would seek to undermine the Canadian interests, and those hostile actors do look for vectors, for entry points into which they can exploit their interests through foreign interference. But I'm confident that we have protocols in place, procedures in place, and certainly when it comes to the procurement of the equipment, here there were no breaches of security, as you've heard the RCMP indicate.
Great, thank you. Was the contract awarded in accordance with federal government procurement policies and regulations and in accordance with trade agreements?
Yes, it was. And in addition to the diligence that was carried out by the RCMP, I would also highlight for the members of the committee that we work in close partnership with PSPC, who are principally responsible for procurement and contracts across government. That work is done in close collaboration, and I would call to the committee's attention in your study that we do have the necessary mechanisms in place for screening as it relates to national security, and that those steps and those protocols are followed assiduously so that we can be sure that the things that we are acquiring are in no way posing any threat to our critical infrastructure or to our public safety apparatus.
Great, thank you so much.
Monsieur Mendicino, est-ce que vous nous permetteriez de compléter le tour avec un...
Could we complete the round with 5 more minutes? We have 2.5 minutes. One moment, I'll just check with my team if I have anything immediately after that I could move.
J'avais utilisé un peu de mon discrétion.
I had used a little of my discretion, so yes, I can stay for another 5 minutes, Mr. Lemire. Thank you very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Minister. In August 2022, Pam Demoff, Parliamentary Secretary for the Security Minister, met with Motorola representatives to talk about the application of the law and security concerns. I'm surprised that the decision in the U.S. and the concerns regarding national security were not discussed. Did Motorola express their worries about the use of its technologies by Hytera or about the national security issues? When was the meeting that took place? August 15th, 2022. 2022. Listen, I will take the time to really check what the result of that discussion was, but I will also highlight that we have excellent engagement with leadership in the industry. They want to provide technology and other things to support our public safety agencies. There are lines of communication, and there's a process, Mr. Lemire. And I want to really underline that the process was followed in this case, and in the future it will be continue to be followed. On June 9th, 2022, Rob Jameson, who is senior advisor at your office, also met with the Motorola representatives. Can you tell us anything about that meeting? Only that it verifies that there's communication and good lines of communication with the industry. It's necessary to understand where the opportunities lie, but always following all regulations and protocols in place. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. McGregor, 2.5 minutes.
My questioning is along the same line as it was just asked. Just concerning our allies in the United States, the FCC, they did list Hytera and had a list of its banned equipment to the extent that it's used for the purpose of public safety, security of government facilities, physical security, surveillance of critical infrastructure, and other national security purposes. Now, I understand clearly the equipment in this particular case came nowhere near our secure communications, and that was confirmed and verified by the RCMP. That being said, the RCMP does work very closely with our United States law enforcement agencies. Would our business contract with Sinclair, which is owned by Norsat and then by Hytera, would this contract have ever given them any sort of pause, or was any kind of concern ever raised? I mean, the United States probably has a vested interest in making sure that our national security is up to par, and I understand that you've defended that, and I do agree that it does work. But have there ever been concerns raised cross-border because of the collaboration that exists between our two countries?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. McGregor, and I can assure you that I work very closely with my American counterpart, Secretary Mayorkas, in a variety of forums. We are consistently finding ways to collaborate in the sharing of intelligence and the understanding of the risks that are posed by foreign actors who are hostile towards us and other democracies and the like. We collaborate in the Five Eyes. We collaborate in the G7. We collaborate in the Cross-Border Crime Forum, in which I hope to be convening alongside our American allies in the very short term. So I can assure you that that there is a very sustained effort to collaborate so that as we are acquiring equipment, services, and technology, that we are applying a very rigorous standard when it comes to national security so that we can protect the Canadian interest in national security. And I think by extension that also has the net positive impact of also protecting our allies, including the United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGregor. Mr. Mendicino, Mr. Minister, thanks for joining us this afternoon and for our first meeting in this Parliament. So thank you very much, and you're free to go, but we still have a few questions to go with Mr. Larkin, Madam Hazen, so thanks for sticking around with us. Et sur ce, je passerai la parole à Monsieur.
And now I will give the floor to Mr. Perkins for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to follow up, Ms. Hazen, on something you said where you said you weren't informed or the RCMP wasn't informed of the charges. The charges against Hytera in the U.S. were leveled in February of 2022, 21 charges of espionage. So I'm curious that neither the RCMP, as one of our primary security agencies and doling out a contract, would be dependent on another department that is not our security responsibility to tell them that a company you were engaging had been charged with 21 counts of espionage and signed in a letter by President Biden and banned from doing business in the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. The existing processes that are in place in regards to contracting for the federal government departments rely on verifications that are performed by our colleagues at PSPC, Procurement Services and Public Services and Procurement Canada. So in this case, we did do a validation with the RCMP in regards to the integrity regime, which ensures that the government does business with ethical suppliers. That validation came back indicating that there were no flags, and therefore the standing offer was let with Sinclair Technologies by PSPC.
The notes and stuff that you read on the last answer, but my question wasn't that. My question is, as one of our primary security forces for this country, why is it you do not have your own knowledge and intelligence and the work that you do with our other security agencies to know and be aware of all companies that pose a threat, particularly when they've been charged with espionage in the United States? I find it incredible that you have to rely on Procurement Canada to tell you that. Isn't that your job and the job of CSIS and some of the others? Do you not talk?
I have, as the Chief Financial Officer at the RCMP, I don't have access myself to a listing of all suppliers abroad, and that is why in my capacity at the RCMP I rely on the processes in place by the federal government, and I validate these transactions with my colleagues at PSPC.
I'll ask the same question to your colleague then, as an RCMP officer, senior RCMP officer and a deputy commissioner. Are you not aware of Chinese state national companies that have been charged with espionage and our closest ally?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. Deputy Commissioner Mike Duhem, that oversees our federal policing and national security file. This is of interest and concern, and one of the reasons of the due diligence review and the internal audit is to look at how do we enhance these processes. What I want to reemphasize is that the piece of equipment that was procured through our radio subject matter experts.
A lot of testimony on that already, but I'm trying to get at the process issue that led to these decisions around that, because it's not the only one that's been happening in the government of Canada. It's happened in Canadian Border Services Agency, again with a company that's owned by Hytera. These are serious issues. Now, the U.S. Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau has published a list of communications equipment and services that are deemed to pose an unacceptable risk to national security of the United States. Has the RCMP, with your security counterparts, produced such a list for Canada?
Not to our knowledge, no.
Okay. How about, it was referenced earlier by my colleague from the NDP about the FCC, and the FCC in the United States has put out a list of radio and telecommunications equipment that pose a national threat or need national protection, I guess, for security issues. Has the RCMP or the security intelligence establishment that you're aware of done the same thing in Canada? We've got a list of those things?
I'm not aware of such a list at the RCMP.
So I guess this is why we see that these, relatively in the size of the government of Canada, small procurements can slip through the cracks when agencies don't have that kind of help and assistance to figure this stuff out, even surprisingly in our security intelligence agencies. The minister referred to standards, and we don't know what those standards are. First of all, some standards clearly weren't adequate because these kinds of procurements keep happening, and standards are changing. So which standards did the minister refer to that need to be updated, that he's informed the whole RCMP and Canadian Border Services Agency and all of these agencies responsible for security to report to him? What are those standards that failed that need updating that he referred to that have been updated?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I can share that there's 2 verification processes that are run by PSPC in regards to procurements. The first one is the integrity regime, which I already spoke to the committee about. The second one is a foreign ownership, control, or influence verification, or a FOCI. In this particular case, due to the low risk associated with this particular equipment, through internal discussions between RCMP security, procurement, and radio technology experts, it was deemed to be a low risk piece of equipment. Therefore, a FOCI was not requested by the RCMP.
Thank you very much. That's all your time, Mr. Perkins. We'll go to Nate for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Joel. First, Brian, it's nice to see you. The last time we interacted was you were in a different role, so I appreciate you being here today. And I wanted to, my core question is actually, all we've heard today is that this particular contract didn't involve sensitive material ultimately, but it was, the concern was driven initially by this concern and a fair concern that the RCMP was going to use equipment that could have presented potentially a public safety risk. How, when it comes to the RCMP's procurement process and who it does business with, is there ever a moment that you compare our practices with, say, our American allies? And so the Biden administration, just as an example, has taken strides, to my understanding, where they won't do business with a list of certain organizations that don't meet minimum standards in relation to human rights. Do we take a similar approach here in Canada? Does the RCMP take a similar approach?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. No, I'm not aware of a similar approach being taken by the RCMP in comparison to the procurement practices that are being undertaken across the Government of Canada and those being undertaken by the United States of America.
And I'll use an example. I mean, I know we're talking about Sinclair today, but there are other instances, for example, and I'll pick on Pegasus as a company, for example, that they provide spyware to authoritarian regimes all around the world, and that's problematic for all sorts of different reasons, I would argue, and certainly a problem for its impact on human rights, its impact on a fair press, its impact on civil society generally in terms of the ability to have strong journalism and strong accountability and a pro-democracy advocacy, all things considered. Would it make sense to you for the RCMP to revisit sort of its procurement practices and, on the one hand, make sure we're addressing public safety in a way that conservatives are mentioning today, but also perhaps make sure we are putting rules in place such that we wouldn't do business and we would have minimum standards in relation to companies that do engage in practices like Pegasus, for example?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I would say in this particular case, as previously mentioned, the RCMP followed all federal government procurement policies and regulations and applicable trade arrangements. I would say decisions around changes that should be made to the overall procurement process as a whole probably should be directed to officials at PSPC.
Sure, but if you're the minister responsible of the RCMP, and you are ultimately responsible for an agency that is doing procurement, or you are in a position as you are in and you are responsible for procuring. I mean, yes, procurement can set certain minimum standards. You can set certain minimum standards too, surely, in terms of the companies that the RCMP is willing to do business with. And it strikes me that we should ensure at a minimum we aren't purchasing we're not purchasing equipment and we're not procuring from the worst human rights violators in some cases around the world. A low bar, I know, but one would think that might be a minimum. My last question, I suppose, is, and this is for either one of you. Have either one of you ever spoken to Ron Deibert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I believe you said Ron Beaver, and if that is
Deibert.
Deibert?
No, Deibert.
Sorry, I apologize.
Deibert, yeah.
So the answer from myself would be no.
And Brian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I have not.
So my request, and Brian, if you could, I don't know who the right person is to do this at the RCMP. Maybe you, maybe someone else. But my ask, and I don't know where this will lead, but he runs the Citizen Lab at U of T. It is world class. Other civil society organizations, other governments rely upon their work. And it would be great if you or someone senior at the RCMP who carries this file around procurement can engage with Ron and his team. I think it would start a conversation that could go somewhere meaningful. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, we don't have enough time to go through a full third round. And as you know, we're going to committee business afterwards. So what I would suggest is that we just open the floor for anyone who still has questions. I know Mr. Lemire still has some questions for the officials with us. And then if we end before the 5 p.m. Time, then we can suspend or adjourn, actually, and go in camera a little bit earlier to discuss the items that we need to be discussing. So I'll just open the floor and actually start with perhaps Mr. Lemire for your questions, if you...
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Larkin, are you using any new equipment to replace Hytera, and why wasn't that equipment chosen initially?
Not at this time. What I can tell you is we're doing a technical review of the equipment. So we are doing spot audits across the nation to ensure that none of the devices, the radio filtration equipment that we're using, has been compromised in any sense. We are doing the due diligence review. We look forward to our internal...
I'm sorry, but there's no French translation. Oh, it's just begun.
Si vous pouvez reprendre, Monsieur Larkin, juste.
If you can start over, Mr. Larkin.
Aucune chose.
You didn't hear anything?
N'entendent pas, donc peut-être reprendre du début, s'il vous plaît.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate, we are So we're still using equipment that has been procured across our nation. There's significant amount of radio filtration equipment that is across our nation on radio towers. We are doing the technical review, which includes spot audits to ensure that none of the equipment is compromised. And we also have the due diligence review, and we're looking forward to the internal recommendations around the use of that equipment, as well as any recommendations that may come from this committee, which will determine the outcome. I do want to reiterate that there's no access to our encrypted radio communications. We continue to believe that this is low risk, although we look forward to the recommendations from committee, as well as the internal findings of our internal audit.
En complément, est-ce que vous avez une
Do you have a list of providers or equipment that is banned? And do you have a list of that kind that we could see?
Experts would have that. We would be pleased to share that with this committee in writing of different opportunities.
Comme c'est Huawei, par exemple.
For example, Huawei might be a part of that list, I imagine. Thank you.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres collègues?
Thank you. Does anyone else want to ask any questions to the officials that are with us today? Mr. Perkins.
You're in charge. What do you recommend, and what will you be recommending internally so that there's more transparency into the process in the future with your future procurement on any of these state-owned enterprises that have been caused a problem? The minister said everything will be, but how will you actually improve that process so you're aware of it, since there doesn't seem to be a link in the communications and the security agencies?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that, and I'll also turn it over to my colleague. When we do procurement of technology, there's the subject matter experts that provide feedback. They work in partnership with our CFO's team around procurement. They also work with our Chief Security Officer on setting those standards. So in this particular case, there's an assessment made, but obviously we're looking forward to the due diligence review. So what recommendations come forward? What conversations do we have with other security and intelligence agencies? Because we do work across the whole of government, which would actually ensure that national security is at the forefront. So again, low risk, although there's always lessons learned in these processes. And hence, for example, the area that I lead, which includes technology, working more closely with procurement, enhanced discussions with departmental security, which is another area that I oversee, around ensuring that actually we maintain the trust and confidence in our systems, in our institutions, such as our organization. But Ms. Hazen may have further conversation around that process.
Quick follow-up. So when that's done, would you be willing to share that? I know there are probably some security limits, but would you be willing to share the results of that review with this committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'd be very pleased to share the results of our internal audit with this committee, as well as the recommendations, absolutely.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dong.
Thank you, Chair. I just have some thoughts to share with you. I represent a riding that has over 30%, 30% of the population that declare them as Chinese Canadians. The most recent census shows that over 5% of Canadian population are, self-identify as Chinese Canadians. So to me, being a member of Parliament, for me is I try really hard to differentiate the policies or politics between Canada and China, and also the issues that's happening, sometimes very problematic within our Canadian community, Chinese community here. So I just want to make sure that while that we are maintaining high alert on foreign interference or bad actors, if you will, on our soil, there are huge amount of Chinese Canadian and Chinese Canadian entrepreneurs that are contributing to our economy, contributing to our supply chain, and so on and so forth. And I don't imagine that incidents like such will cast a shadow on Chinese Canadian entrepreneurs because they're Canadian, they're doing business, and I don't want any of these studies, and I'm sure my colleague will probably feel the same way, that will anyway diminish Canadian companies who may or may not be owned by Chinese Canadian, their chance to supply their goods and services to our government. That's just a thought.
Thank you, Mr. Dung. I understand that's more of a comment than a question, but thanks for sharing it with with this committee. And if I see no one else, then that concludes our questions to you, Mr. Larkin, Madame Hazen. Merci beaucoup. Au nom du comité.
Thank you very much on behalf of the committee for your presence here and for your service through the RCMP. Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to suspend so that we can move.